Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to join us for another podcast. Today, I wanted to take some time to chat a little bit about something that impacts all of us in a way. I want to chat a little bit about creating healthy boundaries. So, boundaries within relationships is something that comes up quite often in counseling. I talk to people just about every day who are looking for support in creating boundaries with people in their life and maintaining boundaries. So I've often thought about, what is it about boundaries that we struggle with so much? And I'll even admit this is something that I have struggled with personally in my own life and something that I have to continue working on just about daily to maintain for myself. So I just want to take a few minutes today and just talk about healthy boundaries. What they are and how we can maintain them. So boundaries are simply limits that we put in place to protect ourselves. These limits might be physical, such as physical distance from someone. They might be financial, or they might be emotional boundaries. So essentially, boundaries help us to not feel drained or depleted in our relationships. Boundaries are really important when we're wanting to maintain and protect our mental health and our well-being. Without boundaries, relationships can become really unhealthy and even break down. We can find ourselves without balance in our lives as well if we don't maintain healthy boundaries. So boundaries look totally different for each of us because we all have really different needs, different situations, and different stressors in our lives. Here are just some simple examples of boundaries and what they might look like. So maybe it means creating specific time in our week to have alone time with our partner, such as planned date nights. That's a boundary in a relationship. Not working overtime on days off, setting that boundary for yourself. And when it comes to your professional life, creating shared responsibilities with your partner, such as housework, cooking, maintenance, bills, all those things. Another one is not accepting physical contact from a coworker or someone else that makes us feel uncomfortable. Another big one for a lot of us is setting limits on social media intake or how often we're going to check and respond to emails when we're at home with our family, how many times we're going to pick up our phone. Those are ways we can set boundaries for ourselves with social media. Also, not allowing someone to pressure you into doing something that you don't have the capacity to do or it's not healthy for you. Oftentimes, a boundary is required when relationships have become unhealthy or unstable. And this is when people sometimes find themselves needing help getting a boundary in place. So let's just use a simple example. Let's say you have a friend or a family member who starts to call you frequently, maybe late at night, expecting you to be available to them when they're needing support. And maybe it's okay for a short period of time, you help them, you feel good about it. Maybe they're in a crisis and you're just that support person. But then this becomes a pattern and it can become negative for our own health and well-being. So perhaps we start to lose sleep, have a hard time focusing at work, becoming irritable with our spouse or our children as a result of this support that you're giving someone. So in this situation, a healthy boundary might be required. It might just mean letting that person know that you care about them, but you're only available certain times to speak with them and to support them. This can be really, really difficult to put in place, especially when we really care about that person and we're worried about their reaction. We don't want to offend them. We don't want to hurt them. The truth of it is sometimes people will not respond well to our boundaries, but it doesn't make them any less important or valid, and it doesn't make it that we don't need them, but I admit it's really hard. So if you're worried about communicating a boundary to someone, try practicing it with another trusted person in your life. Take some time, think about how you want to communicate it, how you want to express yourself, and try communicating it when you feel calm. And then let that person know, you're doing this to care for your own well-being and your health, and it's not a punishment to them, that you care for them, you love them, but it's a protection for yourself. And once you've communicated that boundary, then is another hard part. You have to follow through, and this can be really tough. So let's take an example. If you've told a friend that you'll no longer be able to care for their pets when they go out of town, something they've asked you to do lots of times, then your friend calls you to plead her case and say, I'm really desperate. I need you to care for my pets. Just this one time. It's an emergency. It might be really hard to say no. You might feel guilty, selfish, and you might be contemplating, maybe giving in just this once. But if this is a boundary you've put in place for your own well-being, it's really important to follow through. Restate the boundary, explain it, and hold firm to your decision, because that lets your friend know that this is really important to you and you were serious about it. Otherwise, you might end up feeling taken advantage of or resentful if you give in. Of course, boundaries can be a lot more complicated than that example. When we're dealing with family dynamics, hurtful relationship, when there's a history of negativity in relationships, or maybe that other person is just not functioning that well, it can be a really big challenge to maintain boundaries. So if you have someone in your life who continually pushes your boundaries or disrespects your boundaries, then you may need to put in a more serious boundary of some time or space from that person. Or there might be a need to enlist the help of someone else, someone you trust, maybe even a professional, to help you really set those clear boundaries and to maintain them for your own health and your own well-being. Because what happens when we don't create and maintain healthy boundaries is we become angry, resentful, bitter, even burnt out if it's work-related or just in life, and it leads to our relationships becoming unstable, unhealthy, and just us becoming really resentful. So I encourage you to take a look at your relationships, both personal and professional, and think about how you can work towards maintaining healthy boundaries for yourself. Maybe you need some help in this department, and it's okay and completely healthy to reach out for support on how to make healthier boundaries in your relationships. Good luck with it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.